1.2 trillion rand in the 2015-2016 financial year. For this financial year, Parliament has received a total allocation of just over 2 billion rand. This for the implementation of the resources allocated to Parliament to conduct its work for the period of 2015. Joining us now, we have got Thandi Modise, and she's in our Sea Point studios. Madam Speaker, it's so good to have you. Thank you very, very much for joining us here on the programme.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning to the viewers.
For the interest of our viewers, what are the priorities as highlighted by the current period's budget?
Ma'am, we've just finished and we launched our strategic plan for the next 5 years. We are focusing mainly on 5 objectives. It is to strengthen administrative capability of Parliament, making sure that oversight and accountability are top of the priorities. It is to make sure that public participation and involvement is enhanced. It is to ensure that we continue to represent and to participate in the international fora. It is to make sure that we strengthen cooperative governance and we also strengthen the capacity of members to legislate. We are also very clear that there are other things which we need to look out for as Parliament in this next 5 years. One of them is clearly the need to accommodate members properly for meetings, for office space. It is also to look after the needs of members, and therefore our budget will take into consideration all these other priorities that we need to get involved in.
Who actually oversees the budget?
Well, Parliament does. In terms of the financial management of the Parliament Act, there are structures which have been set up. One of them is the political oversight, which looks at the draft budget and quarterly receives the reports, can interrogate. We also have the Budget Office, which enables us to analyze and to report back. But the Budget Office is also a new structure in Parliament. It is also there to assist other committees, not just the financial ones, to interact with not only the parliamentary budget, but with all the budget of the country.
Yeah. When we look at the vision of this 5th Parliament, to quote, it is an activist and responsive people's parliament that improves the quality of life. Lately, I think one can look at the parliamentary channel. It's open for all South Africans to have a look and see the workings and what is happening in Parliament. Do you feel that Parliament is actually working towards this vision?
Yes, Parliament is definitely working towards this vision. Remember that it might be that it is not everybody's cup of tea to see what is happening currently in Parliament. The fact of the matter is that all the parties there represent different constituencies of South Africa. In their different ways, they are making the voices of those constituencies heard. What we should be concerned about is not that representation. It is maybe sometimes the vocabulary. Whether Parliament is active and responsive, and we are trying to do that. Remember that recently Parliament had to suspend its program to go to be part of the constituencies and our people on the ground to fight against lawlessness and xenophobia. In many of the things that we do, especially as the National Council of Provinces, we have provincial weeks. We are down there in the constituencies, in the provinces, listening, responding. We have a petitions committee as Parliament, which must deal with issues which sometimes do not have specific departments or ministries to deal directly with. So we are going on our way, and that is why one of the priorities that we have in this 5 years is to ensure that the capacity of the member to represent is enhanced.
Yeah, yeah. But you, and we do see both speakers, were in Parliament, completed this 5-year strategic plan, as you mentioned, for 2014 to 19 term. And the objectives include strengthening oversight and accountability. But if you look at what opposition parties are saying, some of the members of the public also have a very different view. And for instance, we'll just bring in Nkandla, the report that's just been delivered by Minister Nhleko. What do we do in a situation like this when it doesn't seem that all parties are agreeing on these so-called values and visions?
There are rules in Parliament, there are processes. Parties agree to how matters are processed in Parliament. In this particular instance, the parties that are in the National Assembly agreed to set up a committee that would process the reports. All reports relating to Nkandla before and now the Nhleko report. And I think that that process must be allowed to take its way. The report comes back into the House, and all the parties again have another bite at the same report. Yeah. To say they agree or they don't agree. It is always important for parties to respect the rules and the processes they have agreed to, because you cannot seek any other recourse outside those. And you can seek that recourse if you have made sure that you have exhausted your internal mechanisms. So I would say that I am not panicking as the chairperson of the NCOP. I think that the National Assembly will be able to deliberately and finally come to a conclusion on the Nhleko report.
Okay, all right. But as it stands right now, we look at the priorities highlighted for the current budget. And just finally, let's round this all off by answering the question, what are Parliament's financial obligations?
Well, Parliament is obliged to ensure that people have access to government. It is obliged to make sure that it intervenes on behalf of the people to change their lives. It is not executive as if you compare it with a department of trade and industry or the police, for example.
Yeah.
It must create that space, that enabling space, and therefore we are obliged to ensure that we administer. We are obliged to ensure that we represent. We are obliged to make sure that members are paid and are well accommodated. We are obliged to ensure that we don't expose Parliament to any other expense other than that. And that is why we are worried, because in the last few years, we've been hiring out venues, we've been doing things which cost us extra other than that which we are structured to do. So if you compare us to a department, then we would say our obligations financially are not the same. We are obliged to talk, to listen, to represent.
Yeah. Let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for talking to us. Thank you for elaborating on some of these issues for us here on the program. That, of course, was Thandi Modise, the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, talking to us about the budget vote tabled before Parliament on Tuesday and some workings of Parliament as well. Now, let's, before we